Welcome to the island blessed by the sun, an unexplored subcontinent of mystery and wonder, a land of primeval forests, sun-bleached steppe, and sky-scraping mesa. Great are the mysteries of this feral land, and great are its dangers. Vicious predatory lizards dwell in forests that grace the clouds. The infamous eight-legged lurkin, predator and dark merchant, waits to serve you in every possible way. And the tyrannical Og, rulers of the sky and slavers of those doomed to merely walk. This is a harsh land of few luxuries, but there is treasure here for the brave and foolish alike. Join us as we explore the tales of this isolated land. The Rescue by Amy Stuphin. Isel crouched among the thorny brambles of the poisonous sleep plant. He held perfectly still, not only because if one of the razor-sharp barbs pierced through his heavy leather tunic he would fall into a deep sleep from which he might not awake, but also so the passing flight of Og would not detect him. Beside him, laying almost prostrate, his head propped on his folded arms, was Tor, Isel's right-hand man, protected from the poison by the nature of his people. His mossy hair and oak-brown skin provided natural camouflage. Tor was older than Isel by nearly 20 years. For the first 5 decades of his life, Tor had known nothing but the Og Slavers' Club. When Isel had first been chained to Tor, only 12 years before, he had never heard anyone so broken and hopeless. Still, at the end of that grueling day, Tor had offered to split his rations with Isel, after one of the Og had kicked Isel's meager portion into the dirt. Nearly 3 long years of toil in clubs had passed before Isel realized that his only chance of escape was with the help of the lifelong slave. Only quiet, hopeless Tor held the secrets of the Og stronghold that could set them free, if Isel was bold enough. It had taken nearly 2 more years before Isel had cultivated the seeds of freedom inside Tor. They had escaped by the skin of their teeth, but once free, Tor became a force of such power and cunning, the Og had paid tenfold for what they had inflicted upon him. Isel knew their only chance to save the captives of the Og before they crossed the bird land borders was the forest path beside which they were laying. Once the Og cleared the trees, they would take flight and be out of reach in moments. Isel knew he could count on Tor in the rescue effort. He was frighteningly efficient. A slight twitch from the big shaggy dog next to Isel brought his attention back to the ambush. The big galumping dogs, playful and sweet to their non-avian masters, would chase the Og until they were too tired to flee any longer. Their job wasn't to chase the Og today. It was to catch and kill them, causing much chaos and confusion among the birds, while Isel and his team protected the prisoners. The corner of Isel's mouth twitched with pleasure as he recalled the pure terror in the eyes of the Og when they saw the great beasts thundering towards them. As the Og emerged from the trees onto the path, Isel steeled himself. The Og carried long pikes. One end had been meticulously carved to a point. He glanced across the way at the other 2 men, only just distinguishable to his practiced eye among the brambles. 6 Og hunters, 2 by 2, pulled along their 3 freshly caught slaves. The scrawny humans appeared to be in their teens, 2 males and 1 female. They stumbled along, hands bound by heavy ropes. Even obscured in the brambles, Isel could see they were in a bad way. Blood oozed from a large gash on the side of the female's head where her ear used to be. The Og often brutalized females as a tactic to distract and subdue the males, but the teenage boys looked just as battered. With a twitch of his hand, the dogs were off, barreling towards the birds, foam flying from their mad, barking mouths. It chilled even Isel's blood. The Og squawked in distress as the canines rammed into 3, knocking them to the ground. Isel and Tor charged the fray. They fell into combat with one of the larger Og. Its confused eyes became rage-filled at the sight of them. Isil's sword clashed with the Og's pike. Light though the birdmen were, they could still wield deadly power and force. The bird twisted the pike under Isil's blade, then deftly twisted the back end behind his legs and swept his feet from under him. Isil landed squarely on his ass. The pike point flashed above him. He would have been run full through had Tor not thrown his full weight in and blocked the blow. With a strength and speed that came specially to his tree-dwelling people, Tor battled with the bird. Isil got to his feet. He ducked under the fray and reached the huddled captives. As much as he enjoyed fighting the Og, their priority was to protect the slaves. The Og wouldn't hesitate to kill them if given the chance. "With me!" he yelled, grabbing the rope that bound the young woman, but the captives were frozen with fear. Isil cursed as a scaly claw gripped him and pulled him away. Once again he found himself in the dirt. He struggled up in time to watch helplessly the dog-ravaged bird raised a broken pike above the screaming girl. Isil threw himself forward, grabbing a handful of feathers and pulling just as the pike slammed down. The girl howled in pain. The bird toppled backwards, rolling over Isil, landing in a squawking heap of feathers. Isil stood and thrust his blade into the Og. It squealed and sputtered its last breath. Isil straightened up. His friends, breathing heavily but with no more than a few scratches, had finished off the rest of the Og. Isil turned to the teenage captives, who Tor was gently comforting. Isil knelt next to one of the two boys, who looked to be the youngest. He cried big sobbing tears that shook him from crown to toe. Isil checked him over quickly, but found no serious injury. "They killed them," the boy sobbed. "They killed all of them." Isil's chest tightened. He didn't need to ask who they were. The Og were ruthless. The boy fell into Isil's arms and he held the boy tightly, as he had many of his fellow slaves. After a few minutes, Isil felt a hand on his shoulder. "We must return to the camp," Drew said softly. A skilled hunter and ranger, Drew was attuned to the forest's surroundings and could sense when trouble was drawing near. No doubt the Og were already aware of the lost slaves. Isil stood, pulling the shaking boy to his feet. The other boy, barely a man, put his arm around the younger and fell into step behind Drew and Drew's right-hand man. Isil turned to Tor. The girl cradled in his bow-like arms. "Is she all right?" Isil asked as they followed the group. "She will live," Tor said, "but her shoulder is broken." Isil nodded. Today was a victory. They had denied the Og 3 slaves. But it served to remind Isil of the hundreds, even thousands of beings like himself, Tor, and the rest of their clan, who remained in Og captivity. Isil would never stop fighting to set them free. To his last breath, even into his old age, he would fight with all he had, and all he was, until the scourge of the Og was no more. Thank you for listening. This has been a story from an author collaboration. You can find details of the author in question below, as well as information to my own works. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.